Yeah, so which patient are you going to start with? Maybe the most difficult patient first?
Most difficult is the one with dysphagia, sir.
Okay, yeah, let's start with her.
So right now, she had an anaphylactic reaction yesterday, sir.
Yeah.
After that, she recovered pretty well. She did fluids and we also gave her Adrenaline.
So the anaphylaxis was due to oral contrast or IV contrast? And what were the features of anaphylaxis that we noted?
She developed tachypnea, sir, and there was signs of bronchoconstriction, wheeze, and auscultation.
Okay, so is it related to the oral contrast because
Yes, it is.
when was she?
If it is related to the oral contrast, then we think that it's local. So it should be one-sided, no, sir. This is diffuse.
Yeah, I mean in the sense that it may not be local, but it is because of the oral contrast that she swallowed. Did she swallow any contrast, or did she get an IV contrast?
Yes, sir. She got an ionized contrast itself and oral as well as IV, sir.
So she got both IV and oral.
Yes,
Now
sir.
we can't say which one was
Which
causing.
one caused it?
Okay. So the main points in favor of anaphylaxis was shortness of breath, but
Yes.
and bronchoconstriction.
Yes.
Now anaphylaxis,
Tachycardia also, sir.
huh? Tachycardia.
Yes, sudden raise in temperature also, sir.
Yeah, so a kind of a systemic inflammatory response,
Yes, sir.
isn't it, of the body? Also, anaphylaxis will also mean that the patient has developed laryngeal edema.
Yes, sir.
He did not develop that.
Yes, she could have. I mean, because that only explains pulmonary hypoxia also, sir. I mean, sudden
Oh, yeah, hypoxia can be due to bronchoconstriction.
bronchoconstriction as well as some hoarseness, sir. Like it was different compared to
But a
the.
hoarseness of the voice also.
Yes, sir.
So you are suggesting some laryngeal involvement as well
Yes.
because she had a hoarseness of voice. Okay, so you are kind of comfortable with the diagnosis of anaphylaxis because she had a sudden onset of
Yes,
tachycardia.
sir, because when we checked her IBC also, it was collapsed and with fluid resuscitation and adrenaline, we simply showed it, sir. So,
So
and
she
it happened
was
exactly.
having this tachypnea, tachycardia, and a bit of hoarseness and shortness of breath. You gave her fluids and
And
hypoxia. Hypoxia, you gave her fluids and with oxygen,
yes,
of course.
yes, oxygen therapy as well as fluids, sir. Even with plain just oxygen therapy, her tachycardia was persistent, sir.
Okay,
So
so
then sudden raise in temperature also. And because we did not give her corticosteroids, sir. I mean, we just gave her adrenaline.
but you did give her adrenaline.
Yes, sir. I am adrenaline.
Adrenaline would have been responsible for the tachycardia.
So, sir, after the tachycardia, we gave her, sir. Her heart rate was already 110 to 120, sir.
Okay,
Even
so
before
what?
that, we went to bigger spike. So,
Yeah,
with fluid was initially,
yeah. So after you gave adrenaline, what happened to the heart rate?
it increased, sir, up to 130, 140. But then with fluids, it came down, sir.
So you gave her adrenaline, you gave her fluids, and we do not know why it came down. Maybe time. It would have come down with time anyway.
Yes.
So really difficult to say what.
In relation to adrenaline, I mean, nebulizations of adrenaline, sir, the hypoxia also came down, not just with oxygenation. Now, and where,
So adrenaline worked as a bronchodilator as well, which we know it to be acting as. So in fact, in one point of time, we used to give subcutaneous adrenaline for bronchial asthma patients as well. So bronchodilation here could have been because of that, and hypoxia could have settled because of that, or it could have been just time.
that could help, but I mean, immediate, we can see that within a span of 1 hour to 2 hours, hypoxia settled down with nebulization. So, and then it
Hypoxia
technically
settled
also.
out within 1 hour. Um, we can attribute it to our treatment partly, and also partly to the time that it
Yes.
got settled down, because her body was, of course, reacting to whatever new things that gone in.
Affected, sir. Her temperature also was 101.
Yeah, so it wasn't because of the IV line which had, through which the contrast had gone in, and there was some phlebitis which was inciting the.
IV line through which the contrast at that point of time or later on, we didn't find any phlebitis, sir. Yes.
Feature of phlebitis. Okay. So whatever it was, it gave her a scare and it has become all right. Now what's next for her?
Sir, things, sir. One thing is whether we can, because it's a school of positive AFP, I mean school of positive for TB as well as treatment of parents.
Yeah, that's something we should call it sputum positive or CVNAT positive.
Yes,
So
CPR
sputum
positive
positive
AFP.
means when we say it's AFP positive, not sputum. No, very well.
CPR positive.
Yeah, so what is the CVNAT? Have you seen the report? Can you show us the report once? Of the CVNAT? Yeah, here it is. See, now what does this mean? Now, we had asked this question earlier. Yes.
Yes, sir.
So what is this published here? MTB positive result. What is that written? Correct. Control C. Control C. Control C 28.8 and run status valid. MTB detected 3.8. I don't know what that means. 3.8 hyphen 10 hyphen 4. So what is that? So we were asking you or somebody to share it in the e-log group and ask the microbiologist, our microbiology PG, our energetic microbiology PG, to tell us as to what are these figures and how to interpret them. Isn't it? We are just saying that okay, somebody has told us MTB positive. What exactly does it mean? Unless we know that, we will not be able to get better insights into her MTB CVNAT positivity. How significant is this? Could it be false positive? Could it be just one off value? How is this done? So we need to know more about this test, isn't it? So this is where I think we had raised this question on Thursday. So let us do it today then, Nikita.
Yes, we are sharing it now, sir. Yes, we are sharing it now with the microbiology.
Yeah, to the e-log microbiology group and the PG. Essentially, you want to know what is the significance of this.
Inference of this.
Yeah, inference and significance and methodology, how to interpret. Yeah, interpretation. Of course, the easiest interpretation is to believe that yes, there could be MTB. But what is this? I mean, how do they do it? How do they find it? And
It's the CPR is cartridge made nucleic acid, sir. So the sequences of the mRNA, sir, that is the protein sequences, amino acid sequences actually, that is detected, sir. There are probes to detect the when you insert the sample in the cartridge, sir.
so, do you think that DNA is a protein sequence? This is a DNA or protein?
Amino acid sequence.
Amino acid is made of protein. Is it a DNA sequence or a protein which we are looking at?
Yes, sir.
What? Is it a DNA or protein?
This is not the DNA, it's a protein, sir. Nucleic acids.
Nucleic acid is part of DNA.
Yes, sir, part of DNA. But what I have read about CNAT is that it sees I mean, when we amplify it, it makes multiple copies of
Of the sequences.
sequences. Yes, sir.
Nucleic acid.
Sequence of amino acids. So that's the nucleic acid. Yes,
Yeah, nucleic acid and amino acids are very different.
Yes, sir. Yes, amino acid is a single thing, sir. So nucleic acid is like
C, C, G, A, D, C, G.
so the entire sequence of it replicates it, I mean, multiple copies are made, and whether that particular sequence is there is detected, sir.
Yeah, so when you are amplifying nucleic acids, basically you're looking at the DNA or RNA. But
Yes,
not
yes.
protein, not
Not
amino acid, it's nucleic acid.
yes, nucleic
So let's go deeper into this as to how they have actually done it, and could there be a chance of false positivity also? You know,
acid.
we have to be very particular.
I mean, this report is also related with CT showing green bed also.
CD showing what?
Green bed appearance of epithelial cells.
What does that suggest? How
Technically, we can't just say that it's TB, but since
show us a green bud appearance in your CT, in her CT. Vamsi, show us the CT again. Yeah, let's go to the CT. And ideally, you should put them frame by frame. Wherever you have seen a green bud, you should take that picture and share it. So, which one, Vamsi, do you want to show us?
It's not clear, sir.
So, Nikita, we had a discussion on green bud last time. So, we gathered that it's nothing but the inflammatory cells or secretions which are kind of inspissated in the bronchioles. So, from the bronchioles, they will, like bronchioles are also branched, so they will be around the bronchioles and will show a
bud-like
yeah,
appearance.
bud-like appearance.
The branching is what makes
So where is that? Let us see it in the CT.
chronic inflammation.
Yeah, it will just suggest some inflammation around in the bronchioles. That's all.
So in chronic, that's what's up. If it's only that, then it doesn't suggest. I mean, it's only suggests
Lady, this lady was having esophageal tracheostomy fistula for God knows how many days. At least the days she is complaining of dysphagia. So wouldn't that become chronic? You know, she's having aspirating. So all the fluid is going into these lungs and the bronchioles, and they will be reacting, getting inflamed. And obviously, they should also produce the aspiration pneumonia. That will itself produce the green bud. So, Vamshi, where is the green bud? Let's go to this one, this frame. Yeah, here it looks promising. If you look at this, can you make it bigger? Yeah, ideally we should take frame by frame instead of taking the whole CT. You see where it can
Sir,
even
is it this one, sir?
yeah, that is the one which we are thinking. Where Vamshi has kept his palm, but we really can't see the CT well because it's become speculated now. So, but I think that is the region where it is. But I would think of a tracheoesophageal fistula leading to chronic, aspiration, because through the fistula, the food will be going into the lungs. That will be causing chronic aspiration. So there is nothing to do with TB. I mean, usually radiologists can't know all that. The thing is, because you know the patient for a long time, you will be the best judge to figure out what is the etiology of these. Radiologists and anybody for that matter who looks at the lung shadows, they can only give us a differential as to what can be the etiology. But they can't say, okay, this is TB. Nobody can say that. By looking at it, yeah. So, green card is a very non-specific sign for any inflammation in the in those airways, where there will be secretions which are getting piled up. So it has nothing to do with tuberculosis first.
Even if it's green, they will given me, sir.
Huh?
Green, sir.
Green.
Green.
Yeah, the one which we have projected. Isn't it?
In spleen also, spleen.
Huh?
Also, there are multiple
Spleen
splenic
also.
granules.
Spleen, yes. So, what does that tell you? When there are multiple splenic, what is that? Hypodense nodule.
Yes.
So, what will it be due to? Unless we see what they are due to, how will you know? So, what would you do to see? You will have to take biopsies and see what are those granules, nodules. Could be any other disease also.
Even if, okay, sir, I mean, it's not proved that it is TB, but if we treat her like TB, while searching for an alternate diagnosis to
Doing
treatment.
all right, then it is TB, isn't it? And if she doesn't, then it is not TB. That's how we do most of the times. We just treat everybody for TB. If they become all right, it is TB. If they don't become all right, it is not TB. But don't you think that's quite not a right thing to do? Because that way we are not really knowing what. Bhavshi here, the identifiers are being compromised.
No, she has no issues. One, we should name
An
it.
identifier by downloading it. So you'll have to
You have to tell whoever it is to change this
and not
do the CT like
never.
never.
No, we
No,
do
you should only take selected parts because you can see the identifier. As soon as we download it and blow it up, we can see our name. So this is one
way.
way. This is a lesson that we should not upload the CD in this way. Okay, so Vaishnavi will have to be told that she'll have to change the uploads, take out the identifiers and basically give the frames which are important. The frames can be even accessed from RADSPA. You can access them from RADSPA directly instead of this kind of film sharing. Better to directly take it from RADSPA. So Nikita is saying that instead of trying to probe deeper and getting some
That's
knowledge,
two issues, no, sir. One is we have to address and treat the fistula, sir. So one is image of yes, sir. So we have to agree with that. And the second is we should treat her for if she doesn't have maybe in the next time then she has a malignancy.
when we decide to treat something, we have to first know the cause. So if you want to treat the esophageal fistula and the trachea, you have to know why there is a tracheoesophageal fistula. So you already know why there is. You think there is an inflammation there, which is caused the ulceration of the esophagus, and it has caused a perforation. So, and that ulceration is very beautifully seen in the endoscopy. That ulcer only got perforated, and not only perforated, it perforated the trachea also. That's how it caused the tracheoesophageal fistula. It's not the other way around. It's not something which happened in the trachea and come into the esophagus.
The esophagus is what
You can see that ulcer there. So what do you think is that ulcer due to? You think it's due to tuberculosis, isn't it? So why can't we just take a biopsy and prove that it is tuberculosis? Maybe we can do a single stain of the biopsy and show that there are.
the biopsy, the site of biopsy, or we could get a conclusive thing from the biopsy also.
Yeah, it may not be conclusive, but so the sensitivity of any test is always limited. But that doesn't mean that we don't test at all. Then
I'm telling you her cost issues, sir. Either she can go for this fistula repair which requires tending, or she can go for the biopsy.
no, fistula repair. Unless you treat the cause, the inflammation will not die down. And there's no point of doing a repair on a inflamed tissue. It cannot repair it. And that would be a huge surgery. I mean, you have to do an esophageectomy and then probably do something about it. So that doesn't look to be a good thing unless you might even treat the cause and the inflammation will subside, the healing will take place, and the fistula will go close. You don't need to really go surgically and close the fistula.
But whether the fistula closed or not, we need a repeated scan also.
That's what the patient will tell you. She will become better if the fistula closes. Why would you need a repeated scan? Scan is again not showing the fistula. I don't know where they showed you the fistula to yesterday's scan. You got to see the fistula on the bronchogram. When they did a bronchogram and they showed the leak. What was that image again? Vamshi? Image of the bronchogram. Previous. Above. It's here only, above. No, this is CT scan. Above. X-ray, bronchogram. Yes, this is the one. So they put a contrast here. But actually they did not mean to do a bronchogram. What they were doing is the esophagogram. What is also known as barium swallow. So when the person was swallowing, because of dysphagia they did this, then some of the barium went into the lungs. You can see it very well. Can you make it bigger? Vamshi, can show us? Make it big. Bring it down. See, look at that white line. This is the bronchogram, which was inadvertently done, which they did not plan to do a bronchogram, but then the dye went through the fistula and went into the bronchus, as you can see here. Very well visualized.
Case we read the information there, then the
Information, healing will take place and the fistula will close. That's the only way to go about it. So, what is the inflammation due to? Is it a malignancy? If it's a malignancy, whatever you give is just waste. It's not going to improve unless you can treat the malignancy. And if it is a tuberculosis, yes, your antitubercular therapy will help. So, you are saying, whatever it be, let's take a chance. And if it is tuberculosis, let us hit her with that. If it's a malignancy, she will not survive. But if it's a tuberculosis, she will survive. And there's nothing else to treat. I mean, it can't be a fungus, it can't be a protozoa, it can't be anything else. So that's how we were saying, let's not bother about trying to prove it, let's just go ahead and treat it.
before trying to do it, let's start with it, and then because trying to prove it is not happening really finances.
I agree with you, there are huge social constraints here because of the financial and everything. So we were thinking whether we could battle those, but I guess we can't. So, okay, then you put it on paper and try to justify, but then why can't we, again, did you talk to the administrators that this is the issue and this is how we need to go ahead and get the biopsy, because we were promised that if a CT is done, we will get the biopsy.
So the exactly positive, sir. Again, she requires even special kits there, sir. It cost her, it's going to cost her 5,000 for the special kit to do the biopsy. Endoscopy itself, sir.
Okay.
Including the biopsy again.
Then let's just take a chance and give her antitubercular therapy.
Yes, we can arrange, I mean, even if we talk about reducing the cost, sir, the biopsy itself, doing the biopsy, it costs less, sir, but going to the endoscopy again and the processing of the sample is just the pathology, they can send it here or there, they can just.
Yeah.
We're not sending any markers as such, no, sir. So, only when on the ways, it's simple, sir. But since she's already positive, again she has to pay the separate thing, sir. I mean,
Universal precaution kit information.
yes.
It's very strange that we should have a universal precaution kit. The universal precaution means all the time we are, under precaution. So how can that be a separate kit?
If at all we find it, or we can convince them for a lesser price and all of that, then and they take or we can picture or they can afford that. All of this is taking time also. So we can start her in ATT or starting her in ATT also was the doubt process. Since she's already in ARP. So can we really go ahead and whether she have interactions with the family center, also should be monitored and so on.
What did you read about on that?
When I read, sir, I mean, mostly it's given about concomitant co-infections. And before, usually before starting ART, so they do screen for TB as well. So in case they did screen and she has this TB after being on ART, sir, she can be treated. I didn't find good enough literature to say that she shouldn't be started, sir. They treated her like a person with a normal immune response only. There's no easy trying to get
Comfortable with starting her without further going to the literature.
no, sir, I want to take it because in case, I mean, last CD for us, 1 month back, we just COVID, sir.
Yeah.
So, looking at all of that, there's a risk that, I mean, in case there's a chance for iris, then she is at risk. I searched for it.
What will happen when if she has iris? How will you know that she has got iris?
I mean, the independent as I mean, she might develop some defects or a fear of believing itself, sir.
Like how? Like she has got dysphagia now.
Symptoms, yes.
What will happen if she develops iris? How do
Iris.
you recognize it?
Yes, sir. She might go into this SIRS cascade, no, sir. She will acute inflammatory response. She might develop ARDS. Or if, I'm not saying that her iris will be pertaining only to dysphagia, sir. In general, it's immune response she might have, sir. And going into ARDS or hypertension, shock.
Yeah, iris is an inflammatory immune reconstitution inflammatory syndrome. So this inflammatory syndrome could be a systemic inflammatory response syndrome, which can involve many organs, but the favorite is always the lungs, as you are saying. So if she has a lung exacerbation of shortness of breath, which she had yesterday also, something like that, so you might even think of iris, isn't it? So, because yesterday there was an immediate intervention preceding her problem.
It's immediate intervention as well as responsible adrenaline in case that, I mean, in case this.
We don't know whether the adrenaline is doing any good. It will be just time. Yeah. So, but now that was intervention, immediate happenstance. Now you will give antidote therapy. What time will you give for the iris to come? Yesterday it was very quick.
Yes.
And what time will you give here? Like when would the iris actually happen after you start ADD? Expected time for reconstitution inflammatory syndrome. Find out.
Yes.
We'll have to review the literature, find out, and tomorrow, day after also we are here. She is also here. We'll have to kind of follow it up, and hopefully our UG students who are listening in will also kind of read about immune reconstitution inflammatory syndrome and share some insights on that, isn't it? Particularly with relevance to this patient. All right. So you were saying let's start on ADD. So let's start it today.
After reviewing, can we start it? I mean,
Monday. Monday.
when you time literature that we can start it together, sir.
Wednesday. What
Time
time?
literature that we can start it together,
I
sir.
want to basically go through more literature before you want to start. Very good. I appreciate that. So let's all go through some literature for her so that we can be much more confident while we are starting the ADD that she may not land up in iris. Isn't it? Very good. Okay. So have you addressed all her problems? Can we move to the next patient?
Yes. The next one is the patient in urinary encephalopathy.
Yes, yes.
Yes, it was sitting in outlets at Korea right now. And we sent the sample for phosphates.
Why do you think he's in altered sensorium?
Drowsy, sir, and he's having this picking behavior. He's trying to pull things out, picking behavior, decreased response, delayed response to commands.
All right. So is he delirious or?
No, sir, hyperactive, not exactly delirious, sir, but just dizziness. Sensorium.
Hypoactive delirium.
Yes, sir, can be.
All right, go ahead.
So, what we thought was pioneer in the morning walks, we sent that sample.
Very good. Then?
There was no phosphates, but plenty of muscles itself.
Oh, very good. So pioneer is right. So how many plenty means? Just plenty.
Yes, sir. I mean,
The entire field is full of
full of
muscles.
muscles, yes.
What you are seeing as a widened Urovag catheter is pus cells.
Yes.
Do we have a picture of that in Gabriel's e-log?
So we just sent, I mean,
Microscopic view of the Urovag, which is showing the pus.
I can show it right now, sir.
Right now, yeah. But take a picture and share also because what you showed right now will not go there to the e-log.
So, our questions regarding this case is if
Yeah, just the
urine will clear it with bags, it is.
huh? This urine, and it is basically pus. So all full of pus in the urine. Is it?
Yes, sir. The entire urine is that color now, sir. So, if all the culture reports
We
are
will
also.
get the image of that also. Because we need to put it in the log, yeah. The culture, you got the culture?
Yes, sir. The culture report.
Yeah. Yeah, share the report so that she can upload it.
Yes,
And
currently,
what do you think about
EY is more than 10 to the power 5 performing units, and this is sensitive only to nitrofurantoin and fosfomycin.
and what is it resistant to?
It's resistant to meropenem, amigdacin, corticoxazole, third generation cephalosporins, norfloxacin,
If it was only resistant to cephalosporin, we would have called it ESBL.
ESBL. So it's resistant to
CRE. Now it is CRE. So carbapenem resistant to corticosteroid.
yes.
Isn't it? So it's a very, very dangerous multi-drug resistant E. coli, which is not getting treated with anything. But very interestingly, it is sensitive to some drugs like nitrofurantoin, fosfomycin. I'm sure it will also be sensitive to what are the other two drugs? Huh?
Sensitive only to both these.
No, no. What are the other two drugs which are generally sensitive when you have CREs? What is the new metalloproteinase, which is a super bug? It was called a super bug, this E. coli. And they were generally sensitive to two drugs. One is
Huh? What?
what?
No, no.
This is different. This is MRSA.
It's a very common.
All the time we use it, no? In the ICUs. Two drugs which are basically uh, derivatives of
Carbapenem resistant E. coli, which is sensitive to other drugs.
yeah, very commonly used in the ICUs.
Nobody?
Colistin is one.
Colistin is not, yes, that is next in after carbapenem.
Yeah, basically when this however medicine intercoca, these are two drugs, colistin
Colistin and
and what is the other one? Any UG who can tell us? You should be having been reading about this.
one is colistin and
And the other is
it's actually
something C.
Amphotericin.
Amphotericin. Is it
Huh?
huh?
Polymyxin.
Polymyxin, yeah.
It's a form of polymyxin. Polymyxin
Polymyxin A, polymyxin B. Tigecycline, yeah. Tigecycline is the kind of polymyxin what C. So we have polymyxin A, B, and probably this is a kind of a polymyxin C. So yes, tigecycline and yeah.
Sir, can we give colistin intravesical, I think, this patient?
So Vamshi is saying, should we give a bladder wash with colistin? Will that be better by killing the local organism that way? Even a hexidine bladder wash may help because we are not really testing hexidine with whatever is the commonest bladder wash. We don't test them.
Yesterday, what we found is with bladder washes. I mean, I don't think the source of infection is bladder also. The organisms are not residing in the bladder. I think it's in the kidney only.
ascended to the kidney, but where are they coming from?
residual.
From the prostate, which was the house of the initial injury, because there was a prostatectomy done, so a lot of debris were taken out. So that when the debris is taken out, there's space for the bacteria to hide there. We know that there are a lot of foramens there, and prostate is a sanctuary site for the bacteria. So when you have a UTI and it goes on for a long time, months, we know that they're actually gone into a chronic prostatitis. The organism is actually hiding in the prostate. This man has already had a prostate surgery, and in all probability, the organism has colonized his prostate and is living there and dividing and becoming septic that way.
Yes, sir. So what we call the worst ultrasound that we had here, it showed some sort of debris in the bladder also that made us suggest some papillary necrosis, and then we thought it was
Necrosis will not be debris in the bladder; it will be in the kidney.
in the kidneys, sorry. So in the kidneys, which made us think it was a papillary necrosis and alien.
It made them think it was papillary necrosis. The radiologist.
Yes, it made and
This papillary necrosis because there was some sloughing out. So
what we saw is in bladder wash is also the tiny reddish masses that are there which are obstructing. This could be the same stuff that is obstructing.
yes, you had some graveluria kind of thing coming out of the urethra, which were some fleshy masses, which you think was ideally you should have given it for testing. Just like you did not give testing for this pus. Similarly, if you had given those,
Just ask him and
he just complained of it. You didn't see it yourself.
we saw it yesterday when we were giving a bladder wash. So we couldn't kind of catch it at that moment.
Acha, okay.
It sort of passed by and it was collected in the bag. So
So either way, that of course is a very macroscopic tissue, which probably is housing the bacteria or whatever, and because of the inflammation there, probably also because of the colonization of the bacteria, a lot of inflammation is going on, which is what you see as pus coming out. Now, whether it's pus coming out only below or whether there is ascending pyelonephritis is what we have to think of. What has damaged his kidney to the point that he requires dialysis now? Is it his diabetes also playing a part, or is it a peculiar combination of all these factors like the infection, the
follow-up with me, sir. Given a follow-up when the sugars were below 250. There was a sudden raise up to 400, like exactly 1 day after he complained of symptoms of urinary retention. He said unless he passes that small reddish masses, he was not able to pass a free stream. So in spite of taking adequate food and insulin that day, the next day only one reading was above 400. The rest of it, I increased the dose of the hormone itself and he was maintaining that. We were trying to get it below 250 and below 200.
So as his inflammation progressed, his infection progressed, his
Retention symptom was there, so that between that itself this cascade occurred because prior to that symptom of urinary retention, his creatinine scores exactly when he had the retention for 2 days, and then his creatinine became 6 outside and 10 here. Unless we pass the larger size bullies, even with the smaller size bullies, he couldn't pass adequate urine. So, larger size bullies only could, the pus and all, it didn't obstruct the bullying and
खत्म हो गया अच्छा अच्छा अभी तो हाँ हाँ अच्छा गुड गुड ठीक है फिर कल मैं आपको लैपटॉप दे दूँगा अभी मेरे ऑफिस में ही है हाँ ठीक है आज इधर रख के जाऊँगा या
unless we pass a larger size bullies, even that was getting obstructed, so the urine was getting obstructed.
हाँ हाँ Statistically, his useful obstruction was such that you needed a bigger police to overcome the obstruction and go in. So that obstruction was again because of an inflammation going in the urethra. This is probably the prosthetic urethra. So why the inflammation? And most probably the inflammation was again ascending, causing further renal failure. So a lot of very complex things were going on, multifactorial, which led to the further aggravation of the renal failure, for which we had to do dialysis. There was no way out because it was such that he went into uremic encephalopathy. And we still know that he's got an infection there, and we are trying to get rid of that. And what have you put him on to kill those organisms?
Right, because we just got the report about half an hour back, sir.
Uh-huh.
We changed the antibiotic as such.
Yeah, what are you planning? What would be ideal in such a situation? Would it be nitrofurantoin or fosfomycin? Or either way is okay? Well, I guess nitrofurantoin is good in the sense that it's oral.
Yes, sir.
Already having so much problem with IV line and
We just were giving dialysis before, so even if it's not excreted by a kidney, but will there be action when it's, even if it's
it is better even if the patient is dialysis to make renal dose modification. So check out the renal dose modification of nitrofurantoin going by the GFR and possibly decide the dose. Then share what the dose you decide in the your COPD or CPAP, how is she? What is the SpO2?
we didn't send an ABG yet, sir. We send it now, and then we're sending it after, what do you say, after she puts in home time and her lunch break finishes, so that we know. Otherwise,
Yeah, you are having to do so much of,
so many ABGs, sir.
giving her so much of pain to do the ABG just for a PCO2. If only we had a non-invasive PCO2 monitoring device like a capnometer, we wouldn't have had to do this. So I wonder why they're so much more expensive than the SpO2 monitors. What is the technology which makes them so much more expensive and difficult to find? And what would be the expense? Would it be the same as a CPAP machine? Let's see if anybody can. Yeah,
Sometimes the campaign is that we tell them why the will be better because it's therapeutic convergence.
uh-huh.
And we were planning to evaluate HCD also. So
Yeah, so okay, maybe not now, later.
later, yes, sir. So we just got the labs. I mean, we need RNA so that after the exhibition episodes are
Yeah,
ready.
it's very, very nice. So you see here HCV RNA or HBV DNA. So there you see the copies. But in CPNAT, what do you see? In CPNAT, what do you see? So I'll leave you with this question to find out and share in the group. Okay, it's a very, very important thing which we must know. As medicine PGs, we try to ignore all these laboratory stuff. Partly because we were never taught well when we were in MBBS. Nobody taught us all these CBNAT and all these things. So now we have to learn it ourselves. I hope our UG current generation has learned better. So let's see who shares all this the literature. And of course, the best thing would be to share it with the microbiology PG and get his inputs as well.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so I'm handing over to Vamshi.
Yes, and Sai Charan will also discuss the files which he has, and all the students are here. How to allocate and prepare mild, moderate, severe.